Good evening, and thanks so much for joining us on this Voice of the Voter Candidate Forum tonight. I'm News Center Maine's Brian Iacono. We will spend the next hour talking with the candidates for Maine's 1st Congressional District. So to kick things off, let's meet your candidates. Independent Ethan Alcorn. Mr. Alcorn is from the 1st District, born and raised in Portland, currently living in Saco. He returned to Maine after college to raise his family. Mr. Alcorn has run for elected office previously, including for governor, school board, and U.S. president, but has not held office. Incumbent Democrat Chellie Pingree moved to Maine as a teenager, graduating from the College of the Atlantic, raising her family, making a living in North Haven. She served in the Maine Senate and was first elected to Congress for Maine's 1st District in 2008. And Republican Ron Russell, raised in northern Maine. Mr. Russell served 30 years in the U.S. Army as an Army Airborne Ranger and Green Beret. He then worked for a defense contractor, eventually growing his own small business. He returned to Maine in 2021. Thank you all for being here tonight for a conversation. Reminder of some of the guidelines. No strict timelines we're following tonight. Of course, we want to cover as many issues as possible so that you, the voters watching, can make an informed decision. With that in mind, that means we will move the conversation along as necessary as we're discussing. Each of you will have 1 minute at the end of the hour for closing comments. We want to get into the conversation now. We drew names just moments ago to see who will receive the first question, and that will go first to Mr. Russell. Thanks for being here. We want to jump right in with a major topic of housing. According to Maine Housing's 2023 data, the median price in District 1 for a house was $470,000 last year. Median income was just shy of $80,000. Big contrast there. Those numbers simply mean you need to make double that income to afford the median house. What can be done at the federal level, and what would you do at the federal level to help that crisis?
First of all, before I answer that question, I want to thank Ethan for throwing his hat into the ring here for this competition. And I also want to thank Representative Pingree for her service to the state of Maine in the Senate, where she was the majority leader there, and also for being the first woman elected out of Congressional District number 1 to serve our nation for the last 16 years. So thank you for that service. Now, when it comes down to housing, housing is a supply and demand issue, and the supply far outweighs, or the demand far outweighs the supply currently. We are 80,000 units short in Maine, and we're 4.5 million units short in the United States of America. So how do we fix that problem? Well, we have to increase the supply of houses, and we have to make them more affordable. Inflation has had a significant impact on the cost of building new homes. So that has a definite negative impact on the availability of housing. The other aspect of housing is inflation has had a significant impact, not just on housing, but across the board in Maine and in the United States. The mitigation efforts that the current administration has taken is to raise interest rates on home loans, and that has increased the price of housing fairly significantly. If you were a builder in Maine and you found out that we were 80,000 units short, that would be a pretty lucrative market. But it costs so much for materials here now that it's almost impossible to build a house that can be affordable based upon the statistics you gave right at the beginning. What I'd like to see happen is to build lower cost units. And I have a friend in Kennebunk who is a builder, and he is now building 2-bedroom homes, which are going for like $210,000, much more affordable. And they're brand new homes, and they're of excellent quality. So a starter home for a family, a 2-bedroom home, is a good starter home. Just like starter jobs, you don't work at McDonald's and expect to make a living out of that unless you move up through their administration and management. Same with a house. You shouldn't start off with a 3 or 4-bedroom home with a small family. So this 2-bedroom home solution seems like a good idea to me. Anything that we can do to increase the amount of affordable housing is a way to skin this cat.
Congresswoman Pingree, same question. What can be done? What are the options at the federal level, and what would you be doing moving forward to help with the housing issue?
Sure, thank you. And I just want to echo those remarks. Thank you for your service to the country, and thank you both of you for running for office. And thank you for having us here for a debate. Housing is a huge issue in Maine, and I know we hear about it quite a bit. We do have a housing shortage, about 80,000 houses short right now. And a lot of factors have gone into this. We had the recession of '08. People stopped building so many houses. We're the oldest we're the oldest state in the nation. We weren't having a lot of young people and new blood, and we had somewhat of an out-migration going on. And then you came to the pandemic. We found people starting to move into Maine, or people came during the pandemic and decided they wanted to stay. So we have the first net immigration going on in the state of Maine since 1971. So it has put pressure on the houses. It's put pricing pressure on the houses. We don't have enough, and a lot of people want to have them. So that's created a huge problem, and it's very hard to build them back fast enough due to the pandemic. As you heard, we have a supply chain shortage. We have a supply chain expense issue. And honestly, we also have a worker shortage in Maine. We have about 2 jobs for every 1 worker in the state. And if you talk to almost anybody in the construction industry, the one thing they'll say is, I need more workers for these jobs. So I'm thrilled to hear about anyone building a $210,000 house. We absolutely need a lot more affordable housing, and we do need help from the federal government. We have a variety of programs that help us out here in Maine. HUD is one of them. The Home Investment Partnership Program puts money directly into the state. The state's really made a push on affordable housing. We also have HUD money that goes to renters and lowering the cost of rent. That's incredibly important. We have programs that go for the homeless people in our state to get more people off the street. We also have USDA, and we have a tax credit that helps with low-income housing. So there are a variety of things that come from the federal level. I sit on the Appropriations Committee. One of the fights that we've been having recently with the Republicans is they don't want to put as much money into housing as we do. I think this problem is growing around the country, and we're going to see a lot more members of Congress who are saying, you know what, we got to invest in housing, because there's no way we're going to build it back fast enough, and there's no way we're going to build enough affordable housing with some of the challenges that we have now. So there are many things we can do at the federal level.
Thank you. And Mr. Alcorn,
yes.
At the federal level, what are our options to make a difference, and what's your plan to help the crisis here?
Let me just start off to respond to them. Thank you. Well, thank you guys for inviting me and all of us here, but especially me, because I guess I was polling at 4% a month ago. I know that's different now. I know it is, because I'm an independent. And thank you for recognizing me, and because I've noticed that some Republicans have kind of avoided me, but I guess maybe because I'm for whatever reason. But thank you, and it really is a pleasure to meet both of you guys finally after all this, back and forth and stuff. And my father knows you as you know, and so I've heard a lot of great things about you. And anyway, the housing issue is, you were right. A lot of people have come here, and that is a problem. It's amazing how many people, and still how many out-of-state plates we have here, and just how many. And it's made things so much worse for the cost of housing, the cost of a house, and to rent. I don't think that in I come from housing. My father started a roof truss business back in the 60s in Biddeford-Saco area. I have a distant cousin who wrote the Section 8 housing literature. Wow. However, I don't think government should be, in all those programs that you mentioned, nobody should be taking them away, but we really need to let the free market take over and stop making government be the answer to everything. And I really mean that. I don't think we should be trying to spend more money. Part of the problem that people are having is inflation is so high, and that is government caused also, because we're spending too much. So a lot of these problems that we're having with things being too expensive and is government caused. And we have to stop relying on government, or we're all just going to be relying more and more on government. And that's a bad way to go, because eventually government runs out of money, our money, and then then what do you do? Because there is no such thing as government money. It's really our money.
In terms of the cost of living, what it costs to live here, quite frankly, inflation rate dropped 2.4% for the month of September. It was at 9% 2 years ago. However, you ask anybody in Maine right now what it costs to go to the grocery store, put gas in their car, heat their homes, versus what their retirement portfolio looks like, telling 2 very different stories. So, Congresswoman Pingree, what is the solution that you would bring to Washington to address what it takes to financially survive in Maine?
Sure. I mean, there are a whole lot of pressures that people have had. Some of it is related to inflation. Some of it are just a whole variety of other costs that we can be more helpful with. I mean, inflation didn't happen overnight. So much of it was related to some of the challenges we faced during the pandemic, and it's sort of hard to think back to that time. But the truth is, you know, we were on lockdown for a while. A lot of things just stopped. We didn't have as much business activity. All of us who lived in Maine saw there were virtually no tourists coming. We had supply chain shortages, we had shipping issues. There were just so many things that backed up the economy. Some people want to blame all of this on government spending. We did spend money during that era. We had the CARES Act. We had programs like PPP, and a lot of businesses wouldn't have survived in Maine if we hadn't had many of those programs. And we do have to always balance how much we're spending and how much we invest in our economy. But many of the things that people are struggling with today are things that we are actively working on. We haven't solved the problem. We're trying to bring down the cost of inflation. But things like housing that we just talked about, the cost of food, some of that has to do with price gouging, some of it has to do with the supply chain shortages. Childcare costs are through the roof, and for a lot of people going to work is really difficult because they can't afford the cost of childcare or their education or their debt. Fuel costs have leveled out a little bit and are better than they used to be, but I believe we have to invest much more in renewable energy so that we can have less expensive fuel. And we're also starting to pay for climate change. A lot of people don't want to admit it's real, but we lost 60% of our working waterfront this year. Many communities are still trying to clean up. Many businesses are still trying to rebuild. Insurance costs are through the roof if you live in a coastal community. And we are going to see increasing costs there. And part of our job is to make sure that that doesn't become one of our new inflationary pressures.
One of those measures. Mr. Alcorn, we'll move on to you with this question as well. What specific solution do you have for addressing that imbalance of what it costs to survive here versus what the market may suggest?
Again, I don't think, I think government really is not something that we should look to solve all of our problems.
So no solution? Is that the answer?
As far as making life better here, no, unfortunately, we're so far in debt right now. We've got $35 trillion in debt, and we have to get back. We have to create jobs, and just let the free market do that. I don't think government can't do that. We have to step up as people, as Mainers, as Americans. We have to start being more responsible for ourselves, take care of ourselves, and just, I know it's times are hard. I mean, you know, everything's expensive, but you just, again, I'll just say it over and over. We can't rely on government for all of our solutions, and if anything, I'll stop spending, because stop spending so much, that will help, or it's supposed to help with keeping inflation in check. So.
Mr. Russell, same question. What's your plan for addressing what it takes to live here?
Well, I think the huge cost, or the huge increase in inflation, was the catalyst for that was getting away from energy independence. And I think we need to get back to being energy independent, and energy dominant is the word, where we start selling more and more of our energy to other nations worldwide. Not only will that help with the price of everything, because everything is related to energy, but it will also help from a national security perspective. We have allies that are relying upon our enemies for their fuel needs. That needs to change. The increase in population has not matched the increase in housing shortage. We have 80,000 units that we're short right now. Since 2020, the population has only increased 30,000. So those numbers don't add up. Inflation is also caused by the amount of spending we're doing at the federal level. Chellie, you were on the Appropriations Committee. We've talked about getting to a balanced budget here. We are $1.9 trillion in debt right now. The interest on that debt for this next year will be over $1 trillion. Imagine what we could do if we didn't have to pay that interest and we had an extra $1 trillion to spend on the needs. So I agree with Ethan here. The U.S. government is not the answer to everything. We simply can't afford to do what we're doing anymore, spending way more than what is in our budget.
Where do we start cutting? Where's your number one place to start
Well, there are
cutting?
things that we can't cut. So there are mandatory spending limits, but we do have some discretionary spending, and that's where we need to start, right there. Folks look at the military for spending. I think Given the current threat environment around the world, we need to spend more on our military. As I was growing up, we talked about a 600-ship Navy. We're less than 300 ships in our Navy here right now. And we know that China is increasing the size of its Navy by leaps and bounds. We need to spend more on our defense. We have to look at other avenues to where we can save money. We are spending a ton of money right now funding non-citizens at the expense of our citizens. There's one place to save. President Biden boasts about $78 billion worth of relief for student loans. There's $78 billion we shouldn't be spending. I can't imagine asking my 94-year-old aunt to pay more in taxes to pay for someone else's school loan. That is beyond my comprehension.
Congresswoman Pingree, following this conversation, where do we start cutting? We are aware of the deficit and also the debt. Is there a place we turn to first to start addressing that?
I think, just to be clear, we spend a little bit less for all other things. Let's see, the amount we spend for defense, about $800 billion, is a little bit more than we spend for all other things combined if you leave out Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. So just keep that in perspective. We have a very strong defense industry in this state. I've always been a big supporter of a 600-ship Navy, so I know exactly what he's talking about. We build the DDG-51s here and the DDG-1000, so we've got a great source of pride. It's very hard to make those defense cuts, and when you start talking about it in the troubled world that we're in, it's not as easy as people think. Everybody has their ideas about where to cut. I would remind everybody that when Donald Trump was the president, he added $1.9 trillion to the deficit because he gave tax cuts to the wealthiest and big corporations. So some of it has to do with a little bit of a balance about does everybody pay their fair share. So one other thing I want to mention, one of my opponents here mentioned that we're not energy independent, and we have been energy independent since 2019, and under the Biden administration, we have actually produced more oil in 2023, 12.9 billion barrels of oil, than we did in 2019, 12.3 million barrels of oil. So we are producing, we are net energy producers. We are the ones who are picking up the slack when people don't want to buy for Russia right now. And as you know, most of our European allies, for national security reasons, are buying from us right now. We have definitely kicked it in. Now, we have huge concerns about the impact of fossil fuels on climate change, and you can't walk away from that question. But the truth is, we are already drilling everywhere. And the only places really left to drill in the United States have to do with offshore oil drilling. And if you're going to talk about energy later, we got to talk about that, because that is not a polite topic or an interesting or easy thing to say in the state of Maine, because we have to worry about what would happen if we were drilling for oil offshore.
And Mr. Alcorn, this may be your wheelhouse, looking for government to do less. You're in Washington. Where do you start cutting?
Well, like she said, strategically cutting some of the military. And I disagree that, because it's dangerous times. It's always going to be dangerous times. There's always going to be somebody saying, oh, we can't do that. We have the biggest military in the world. And a lot of our expense comes from weapons that we're sending to places like Israel and Ukraine. I mean, the amount of money we're spending to those two countries alone, it's bewildering. And what are we getting? I mean, we should have brought Putin and Zelensky over here, and they're both at least Putin is one of the members of the young global leaders. Where we go to space with Russia. I mean, I don't understand what happened to diplomacy. So getting back to the spending, strategically cutting, I know that's going to be, ruffle some feathers in the military by saying that.
What does strategically mean? Where do you start with military?
First we should audit the military, for one thing. How do you know what? They can't. They're unauditable. I mean, they have tried before, and they have just given up because they have a system that's almost too complex to comprehend or to audit. And so there's one place, but we don't need to pull the rug out from everybody or from any one group or send panic about cutting everything. I know we can take care of everybody in this state, in this country, by doing common sense cutting. And common sense is, by the way, is my big thing. What happened during COVID was so uncommonsensical, it was ridiculous. And by the way, that was the greatest transfer of wealth in human history. We went up. Trump wrote a check for $6 trillion. The COVID just became the greatest, one of the biggest expenses that we've ever had.
Okay, so we'll
for no reason.
There for where we'll cut.
What's that?
We can't go back and cut COVID at this point, so we'll leave it at there for where we'll cut.
I know.
When we come back, though, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, some viewer questions that were submitted for our candidates. That's next. We're back with our Voice of the Voter Forum with the 1st Congressional Districts. We want to get some questions from our viewers that we received over the last week. First one is about Social Security. So the question has to deal with the recent announcement that the cost of living adjustment for Social Security in 2025 is going to be 2.5%. Hardly keeping up with inflation at that point. So a viewer wants to know, if elected, what would you do to help those on SSI make up that difference? When we're looking at that 2.5% and then what it actually costs to live on that money. We'll start with Congresswoman Pingree.
Well, we have a plan in Congress right now. It was written by Representative Larson from Connecticut. And it's actually a way to deal with some of the challenges in the Social Security Trust Fund and to make sure that we actually have a better system for dealing with the cost of living increase. It would add money back into the pool by everyone's income today is capped at $168,000, so it would leave a gap between $168,000 and $400,000 in income. But over that, what would amount to about 0.4% of Americans would actually pay into the trust fund. It would make it solvent until 2100, which is one of the issues that people are dealing with. But it would mean things like the COLA. We would use a better index. Right now, the index really just deals with the food market basket, but not things like energy costs and other things that should be factored in. It would allow for an immediate Social Security increase of 2%. It would repeal WEP and GPO, which is a weird little thing that impacts only people in 17 states, including Maine, so that's a big one. And it would do a variety of other small things. But it's the best plan out there right now. It's better than raising the retirement age, and it would automatically change the system that we use that, as you were saying, really doesn't give people enough of an increase right now to deal with the cost of living.
Mr. Russell, same question. How do we cover that cap?
Increase the cap
Yes.
based upon the cost of living increases. It's very, very simple. So there's no reason why it should be capped. It should be increasing in accordance with inflation, the cost of living.
Same question, Mr. Alcorn. What's the plan for that?
Yeah, you're going to have to increase it just so people can keep up with the cost of living increases. My girlfriend is going to be on Social Security pretty soon, and I mean, it's just not. Yeah, it's not enough. So that's what I mean by no one's going to. I'm not here to pull the rug out from under anyone. I think that you have to take care of people for what they paid into it, and
so what's the plan when people have paid in and they're expecting that, and then there's a question that the Congresswoman mentioned out of it'll carry us through to a certain year when there's that concern about what's going to happen. How do we address that?
I mean, you're just going to have to increase it to whatever is the right amount, whatever is agreed upon to be the right amount. So, and a lot of times Republicans talk about turning it into the stock market or letting the stock market take it. I'm not in favor of that at all. I think that's just way too risky. You know what I mean? That kind of talk. Have you heard that kind of stuff?
This is we're here to listen to you tonight, not me. So.
Well, I mean, I'm just throwing some ideas around here, and I don't like that one. But anyway,
I don't like it either.
Okay.
Okay. There we go. We have a point to agree on. That's actually very good.
We're agreeing.
If the system is doomed to fail, we certainly need to take a look at it. And I'm not talking about taking a look at it for any of the current recipients, but let's look at the system in the future. I know the military retirement system was changed while I was in the military. I wasn't aware of that until we started talking, when I started talking to junior officers. When I retired at 20 years, you could get 50% of your base pay. When they retired, they got 40% of their base pay. But there were other programs that they could invest money in, thrift savings plans as an example, that accounted for that difference. We need to look at Social Security, and privatizing it, I think, is what you're referring to, Ethan. And I don't think that that is a bad idea. Look at the way the stock market is going here right now. People are better off managing their own money. So I think that's what where we ought to go.
You mentioned the change in the military just in your time of service as well. Would you support increasing the retirement age to get those benefits?
Not for anyone who's in the system here right now, but let's be realistic. People are living longer. So for folks who are coming into the system right now, yes, they probably should expect a later retirement age.
I'd have huge concerns about that, especially in Maine. I mean, we have so many people working the trades, and if you're a fisherman or you're a carpenter or you're working in the woods every day, you don't want to wait till 70 to have to collect your retirement. So yes, we live longer, but that just means a lot of people, if they had to wait that long, they'd be working a second job, or they'd be working in the service industry or something, because a lot of people just couldn't work that late in life.
Comes down to one of the basic questions that my colleague Rob Caldwell asked recently as well, of, you know, the basic solutions there are increase the age, increase how much people have to put in, or reduce the benefit, take away benefits. So,
Pay in.
Pay in more.
Absolutely.
But
okay.
not only are we living longer, we're more healthy there as we get older. So I'm doing things that my predecessors were never able to do at my particular age. And that's the case across the board. We're much healthier at a much older age, so we're able to work longer. People asked me when I was going to retire when I had my company. I said, you're going to find me with my head on the desk here, deceased at some point in time, because there's something about work that keeps us younger, okay? So let's take that into account.
I do want to get back to a question from a viewer, and it's specifically directed toward Congresswoman Pingree with your experience. The viewer wrote to us and said, I'd like to ask Representative Pingree, pretty much everyone thinks Washington isn't working right now, which may be an exaggeration, but it's one person's perspective. She's been there 16 years. Why would she go back to be part of this system that is part of the issues we're discussing here tonight? So why go back? Why are you looking to go back?
Well, first off, I consider it a huge privilege to have the opportunity to serve. And it isn't always easy, and it doesn't always work. I would like to be in a Congress where the Republicans don't control Congress and the Democrats do. And I think we'd have a better time getting things done. It's been a particularly bad 2 years with the Freedom Caucus kind of upsetting our ability to get legislation passed and to do our work. But I do my best to focus on those things that are bipartisan and that we can get done. My goal every day is to try to get something done in Congress. I serve on the Agriculture Committee. We've been working on the Farm Bill all year. I brought the committee up here to Maine so that they could see what we do, and I brought Republicans and Democrats because that's a very bipartisan issue. I showed them our agriculture, I showed them our aquaculture, I showed them a lot of things that we're doing here. I serve on the Military Construction and VA Subcommittee of Appropriations. VA is a very bipartisan thing, and military construction is something that we've had a lot of agreement on. I work on those issues on appropriations where you can find cooperation across the aisle, where you can find other people to work with, and so many of the things that we're doing in Maine on our natural resource industries, whether it's fishing or farming, working in the woods, forestry. I mean, those things are happening in states all over the country. I got a 71 rating in the Lugar scale of bipartisan cooperation, and that's based on how many bills do you sponsor that Republicans co-sponsor, and how many times do you sign on to their bills? Well, 71's pretty good out of 435, and that tells me we're getting something done every day. We don't get every bill passed. We don't have great years every single year, and this one's been particularly jammed up. But I always look forward to the future, hope I have the privilege of serving again, and know there are a lot of things we have to keep working on, all the things we're talking about tonight. Housing.
Can I say something here?
Yes, because I'm curious to follow up with that in mind and why you're running. Why do you want to go to Congress if it's so dysfunctional?
Well, all three of us, I'm sure, can get along with other people and get things done down there. I don't doubt that at all. But I think the point is, like, what specific things have you gotten done? That's one. But before you answer that, let me say I think the system, the two-party system, is broken. And what I mean by that's why I'm running. I think the two-party system is not representing the people. Every year, both parties send us further into debt. And they don't represent the people very well. Both of your parties, you two represent parties, and you follow kind of along with those parties. with what you say. I actually, I'm not representing a party. I'm just like the people who are watching. I'm a person. I'm a worker. I'm a landscaper. I work hard. You were talking about work. I agree with you. Work is the greatest thing. I know it keeps me healthy. But we can all get along down there. It's what are we getting done, and how government is being not representing the people and spending us into debt every time, and it just keeps going and going, and there's like no end to it. That's what I kind of want to throw in there. But if you wanted to answer the question about
we will get to Mr. Russell, but I want to give you a chance to answer his question as succinctly as possible in 16 years of what have you done?
Well, one of the things that is really unique about Congress is that it takes a certain amount of seniority to get anything done. So one of the great benefits of being there 16 years is I'm the ranking member on a subcommittee. It means I get to make a lot more decisions about spending that will come back to the state of Maine, whether it's this year. We brought a lot of money back that were for sewer and water treatment systems in shoreline districts that are having problems with the storms, or funding for education or healthcare, or many of the things that we work on. I work on a lot of issues, as I said, related to small agriculture. I think that's very responsive to my constituents. We have a lot of small to medium-sized farms. I've worked on multiple farm bills, writing more into it to make sure to support the small to medium-sized farms, farmers markets, SNAP benefits, helping people get healthy fruits and vegetables. I work on the Wood Innovations grants. That goes to a lot of programs like Timber HP, which took over the Madison mill and is now no longer a paper mill, but now making wood fiber insulation that'll be used in housing all over the country. I mean, it's a long list of things, ocean-related things, ocean acidification bills, working waterfront bills to try to protect some of our working waterfront, particularly in developed areas where fishermen can't get a hold on land anymore. There are a lot of things that we work on and do every day, and it's an important part of what we do. And to sort of say we're following the parties, the good thing about coming from Maine is everything you do through a Maine lens is about common sense. It's about our natural resources.
Was COVID common sense?
Having an international pandemic was not common sense.
Were the lockdowns constitutional or unconstitutional?
I don't have any doubt that they were constitutional. They may not have been the best way to always deal with the problem, but we were facing something. Was it
part of the Constitution when our founding fathers wrote it, that when a virus comes along, we'll shut down the government, we'll shut down businesses, schools, churches, and make people lock down and stay in their homes?
The government didn't shut down.
Well, okay then.
All right, we can go back to COVID.
I rest my case. The government is the last thing standing.
Schools kept operating. They just had to do it in a very different way.
No, it was way overblown.
It was a tragic loss of hundreds of thousands of lives.
Mr. Alcorn, your stance is noted. Mr. Russell, I want to give you a chance to answer that question of you identified in your campaign material. You moved back in 2021 because you didn't like the direction of the government.
Correct.
Dysfunctional is my word, not your word. Right. Why go to Congress, though, if there is this feeling that Washington is dysfunctional?
Well, before I answer that question, I want to, in the words of Miles Standish, respond to you about representation and how well I'll represent the people of Congressional District 1. Speak for yourself, John Alden. Okay, I've promised that every weekend that I'm available, I'll come back and hold town hall meetings and other types of events where people know what I'm doing as their congressman. More importantly, I'll know how they feel about the way I should vote in Washington, D.C. The job title is representative, and you can't do that if you don't come back and meet with the people that you represent. Now, in terms of Chellie, you said you wish the Democrats were in charge. Well, the Democrats were in charge for the first 2 years of this current administration. And we didn't get a whole lot done except a whole lot of spending. And that was where the inflation started to rise. Inflation has come down. Is that the result of the Republicans now taking office? I don't know. When you look at the Democrat platform or the Republican platform, they basically have the same planks. Okay, so we have the same interests and why we want to accomplish what it is we want to accomplish. It's the how, okay? So I'm sure the Democrats want to secure the border, okay? We want to secure the border. How we go about doing that, that's where we run into a bit of a problem. So we've had 11 million immigrants come across the border. 11 I'm using as a number, 10, 15, 20, I've heard a bunch of different numbers. these are having a significant impact on our country. We have a legal immigration system which lets in about 1 million naturalized citizens every year. That's the number that we thought we needed, and that's the number that we can absorb. This country cannot absorb 11 million people over a 3.5-year period. So, to get back to your question, I wouldn't be going down to Washington, D.C. if I didn't think I could make a difference down there. We've lost all sense of decency down there, and we pass policies or laws based upon partisan politics. Any law that is passed along party lines, and there have been many, is bad legislation. I don't even need to read it. We've got to do a better job. We've got to be more decent with one another. We've got to coordinate with one another. We've got to, use a dirty word here, compromise in order to achieve what we both have as, both parties, or all parties have as goals. And I think that I can do that. Ethan mentioned it. I think all three of us don't have any problem with getting along with people. And I'm going to exploit that when I get down to Washington, D.C.
You obviously mentioned a significant topic as well, this campaign cycle of immigration, the border crisis, as it's commonly referred to as. Congresswoman, we'll start with you on this, in terms of what is the solution here? We've been talking about it for years. The Trump administration wanted to build a wall. Things have evolved from then. We see the numbers increasing in the last few years as well. What is the answer going forward?
First, I want to go back to one thing. About the first 2 years when the Democrats were in control, Joe Biden's first 2 years, we had control of the House. We had a very small majority in the Senate. We passed the Inflation Reduction Act. We passed the infrastructure bill. We passed the Chips and Science bill. Now, you might just call that spending. It was the most significant spending we've ever had on climate change. And if we don't do something about climate change, I don't know what our children and grandchildren's future is going to look like. The Inflation Reduction Act had a cap on the price of insulin. If you're a diabetic or have one in your family, as my mother was, you know how difficult it was for people. Now it's going to be $35 a month. We put a cap on the price of prescription drugs for seniors. We did a variety of other things to attempt to bring down inflation. And we invested in a lot of really important things like the cost of health care. So there was a lot of important things in there. You can go anywhere in the state of Maine right now and see how that the infrastructure bill is being invested in our state. And if you are out and about in our state, which I am every single weekend, I'm back here every single weekend, you see we had roads that had to be fixed. We had bridges that were antiquated. We had port facilities that needed work. So that was long time in coming in the Chips and Science, is because it's essential that we manufacture chips in this country. So we didn't do nothing in 2 years. We got a lot done, and a lot of it was very bipartisan. Legal immigration is an important part of our toolbox. I can't basically talk to any Republican about immigration right now, because the fact is we had a compromise bill in the Senate written by James Lankford of Oklahoma, who is not a wild and crazy guy. He's not a liberal guy. He's a Republican. That was crafted with blood, sweat, and tears. People from all parties and one independent sitting in the room putting something together, and Donald Trump called him up and said, kill the bill. Don't pass that bill, because I need it as an election year issue. So now everybody's demagoguing in immigration. We all know there are some problems. We all know that we have to shorten up the amount of time that asylum seekers take to get their asylum approved. We all know that we have to do something about many of the challenges at the border, the number of people coming across. I would have compromised on many of the things in that bill. I don't agree with everything in that bill, but it was a compromise. And it dealt with so many of the things that people are saying today, even shutting down the border if too many people were coming through. And to demagogue about immigrants just gets my blood boiling. My grandfather, all my grandparents were immigrants. I don't know what country your family came from, but I've only been here since my parents' generation. So, I don't have a long time here. And I don't have a long time being in the United States, and we wouldn't have a country today. Right now, there are 2 jobs for every one worker in Maine, and we need more people to do those jobs.
Please?
Well, sorry, both of you guys are picking on me. What am I supposed to do?
No,
Mr. Alcorn, I think the question is your argument is this is not working. So what is your answer to immigration?
Right, exactly. And so she brought up some good points and stuff, but let me go back quickly, and this is why I didn't want to forget my point to respond to the representation. The Hill came out with a article that said most Americans feel that the two-party system isn't representing the people and cannot bring meaningful change to this country. That's what the only point. I didn't say that you weren't going to represent the people, or that it's the system. But on immigration, boy, I worked with the Hispanic community in Lewiston, and I speak Spanish. I don't have anything against immigrants and immigration. All right, we're all immigrants. We all came here at one point. Our ancestors. My ex-wife is part Native American, so my kids are part Native. But how many? 10 million people. People are starting to wonder why so many are pouring over the border, and more importantly, or equally as important, is why is the government paying them? When our ancestors came here, we didn't have the government handing us cell phones and money and apartments and all this stuff. That's costing us money. That's causing our debt to go up. That's the point that I think that most of us are making. None of us who are conservative or Republicans are saying that we hate people who are coming here. In terms of identifying a solution,
I just want to get back to that point of, are you saying do not provide any resources, let anybody who comes across the border be homeless? Well, it's so frustrating because you have a lot of veterans who are homeless. You have a lot of people. I mean, go right through Portland and just look. There are a lot of people who are obviously not from Haiti or Africa, and they're still homeless. Why? I was on the radio and suggested building. I just want to get back to the solution part. Do you have a solution? Yeah, this is the solution. People come up with suggestions and solutions, and then they do the wrong thing. Perfect example. I suggested the homeless shelter in Riverside to be built. I mean, it was a suggestion. I don't know if it was but they built it and they put the immigrants in there and left the homeless on the street. It was supposed to be for homeless, and they put immigrants in there. Now the homeless are still. It's like we got to start taking care of our own people. Mr. Russell, I want to loop you back into this because this actually started from a previous answer of yours. How do we address immigration on our border?
We have two systems. We have a legal immigration system that's based upon what our requirements are for labor and new citizenry, and our ability to absorb that amount of people into the country. Again, 1 million per year basically is what we develop as new citizens here, what we accept as new citizens. We have an illegal immigration system, which we've made semi-legal by some proclamations by our president. Now, I think you were a little disingenuous there when you talked about Schumer's bill, Chellie, because
I think it was Senator Langford's bill.
They worked on it together. Senator Langford was part of a crew that worked on that. But it didn't leave the Senate. We had a bill called H.R. 2 that came out of the Congress that you were in, that went to the Senate, has never been taken up. In the military, we have a test for our courses of action that we adopt: suitability, feasibility, and acceptability. Suitability means, does it accomplish the objective? If the objective is to stop illegal immigration, that bill that came out of the Senate did not stop illegal immigration. It allows 5,000 immigrants per day to come across. And when we reach a magical number higher than 5,000, then we can close the border. We haven't been able to close the border at all here. So how are we going to do that when we meet that magical number? Impossible. What we need to do is stop all illegal immigration coming into the United States. We do that by continuing to build the rest of the wall. Okay, that's the first step. We've got a problem on our northern border here as well. We have to use probably technological means to help us close the northern border, and then keep a close eye out for where they are outgunning those technological advances.
We will leave it there on the topic of immigration. We will take a quick break, though, and we'll be back after this. We are back with our candidate forum. We want to get to a few other significant topics as we're wrapping up this hour with our candidates. Climate change and the issue of the climate has been a major topic as well. The Congresswoman brought that up briefly before. So I want to ask, we've been talking about the expenses of the government, what it costs to run government, programs potentially cutting. So in terms of climate, where do you advocate the money come from to do the repair side? Climate change is affecting us right now. Our roads have washed away. We saw that last winter. Our working waterfronts were significantly impacted as well in those storms. But there's also investment that needs to be made to reverse the human impact of climate change. So how do we balance the cost of both of those? And we'll start with Mr. Alcorn.
Yeah, so that's a good point. But let me go back to immigration very quickly, 10 seconds.
We'll keep it to
Part of the problem of the immigration that we're having is because we, the United States, is destabilizing other countries and they're coming here. That has to be said. So that can be.
That's 10 seconds.
Lebanon is going to be next. Watch who comes. On the climate change and infrastructure, whoever said it, our roads are, I can't believe how big our government is, and our roads are still not, I mean, when a new ribbon of pavement goes down, it's great. I'm like, oh yeah, and I drive a motorcycle, so I love it, but you go to some towns and it's like going over cobblestones. We have to, I mean, that should be, the way the government is so bloated, I would think we would be driving on gold roads, but
is there a solution to funding? How do we fix the problems that we're being impacted from climate change, and how do we prevent further climate change?
How do you prevent further climate change? That goes right over my head. There's no way to prevent further climate change.
Okay, we'll take that answer. Mr. Russell, what are your thoughts on climate change and how we pay for those two buckets, the impact of what's happening and preventing the human effect on climate change?
When it comes to climate change, we know that the United States has done a pretty good job in reducing our carbon dioxide output. It pales in comparison to what China, India, other developed nations produce. They are building 5 coal-fired energy plants in China every week. Why aren't we holding their feet to the fire? I think it's time to stop penalizing Americans for their energy footprint and start penalizing the folks who are really contributing to global warming. Climate change, there's no question that we are having climate change. We see it from season to season. But I don't think providing subsidies for technologies that don't work is the way to go. And I'll use electric vehicles there. We used to provide subsidies for hybrid vehicles early on. I've owned about 10 hybrid vehicles, okay? That technology works. Electric vehicles, if you want an electric vehicle and it satisfies your needs, that's all fine and dandy, but it's not for everyone because it doesn't satisfy everyone's needs, particularly here in the great state of Maine. So I would say stop subsidizing, save some money and along those lines.
Congresswoman, how do we manage that of the cost of the direct impact happening right now from climate change and working toward the future to reduce our impact?
Yeah, it's a huge issue. We've already had 20 storms this year that have cost over $1 billion apiece in the United States. So most of that money comes from FEMA that goes to, public infrastructure and the problems that we're having, but that doesn't cover, as we learned in the January storms, it doesn't always cover private businesses, working waterfronts, so it's a huge issue. There's some federal money that's already come into the state to deal with resilience for communities that are trying to think about, how do we plan for moving our sewer facility, or how do we plan to change some of these roads. But what's coming ahead and the cost of insurance are going to grow every year. This is something that's right before our eyes and what's happening in the most recent storm. So we know we have to do something about it. But making these investments up front, whether it's people putting more solar panels on the roof or renewable energy in a variety of ways being used in the community, electric cars, there are all kinds of government supports out there right now for people who want to invest in that and bring down the cost of energy in their own lives, whether it's driving a less expensive car or having their home heating oil costs disappear because they have solar panels and a heat pump. So there's a lot that's already out there that people can take advantage of, and Maine is one of the states that's doing that. So we are investing on all sides, and people can say, keep the government out of it, but this isn't something that's going to naturally happen in the free market. The oil and gas industry and the fossil fuel industry loves where they are today, and they want to stay in the position that they're in, and they're actively lobbying against us doing anything.
We have to wrap there. In the interest of time, we did ask you before if you had a solution. You didn't have one. It was over your head. We did come to the end of our forum, but before we went on the air, as we said at the top of the hour, we did draw lots to determine which candidate will give the first closing statements. They will each get a minute as well. We begin, as we started this hour, with Mr. Russell.
In closing, I want to talk about the status quo. This is a status quo that the current administration is responsible for based upon flawed policies, and they're policies that Chellie has supported 100% in the last 4 years. Our economy is in a shambles. 10 businesses here in downtown Portland have closed in the last month. Crime and drug deaths are up fairly significantly. Just look at the recent shooting rate here of a teenager in downtown Portland. Affordable housing is not available in Maine nor anywhere else in the United States of America. We use inflation as a talking point at our dinner tables there at night to figure out how we're going to make ends meet. We are spending money that we don't have, and that includes funding for non-citizens at the expense of our citizens. We are spending $1.9 billion more than we have budgeted. That is a huge part of our budget. We can't go on like this. It's time for a change. Congresswoman Pingree has had her chance, and I think it's time for a change. I represent that change, and that's why I'm running for the United States Congress. And I would appreciate your vote starting tomorrow, going through Election Day on the 5th of November. Thank you.
Congresswoman.
I've been really privileged to serve this district in the 1st Congressional District in the state of Maine, and hope I can continue that opportunity. I understand people have been struggling, and I've had a laser focus on things like housing, the cost of food, the cost of childcare, how to make sure that everybody can afford renewable energy and we can deal with the existential crisis of climate change, how to make sure that everybody gets the education that they need. There are so many challenges before us today, but we have a lot of exciting things going on in Maine, and I've been really pleased to work on so many of our natural resource-based industry, the jobs that we have in the woods and on the water, our fishermen, our farmers. So many good things have been happening in our state, and we can be really proud of the work we've done battling climate change and making sure that we come into compliance. I'd like to see a great future for my children and grandchildren, and I hope I get an opportunity to keep working on it. Thank you so much for the voters for the privilege that you've given me this far, and I really hope I get this chance again.
And Mr. Alcorn.
Yes, thank you. It is an honor to be here, and it would be an honor to go to Washington to solve our problems. Climate change is not over my head. CO2 is plant food. I just don't think government should be getting too much involved in this. But I just want, everyone knows you, Chellie, really well already. I just want to tell people a little bit more about me. I grew up in Maine. I'm right from Portland. I grew up here. I was the first class to go to Reiki school. I went to Camp Susan Curtis. I was my mom knew the director, so I was one of the first groups to go there. I went to Katahdin in Camp Chewonki, and I evacuated in the 1977 forest fire. You know, I love this state, and I love this, the first district, excuse me. I've been to Vinyl. I grew up basically on Vinyl Haven. It would be my honor to have your vote and to serve for you guys. Thank you.
That's your minute. Our thanks, of course, to each of you for joining us tonight for a conversation. We got to a number of topics. We could have gone on much longer, of course. A reminder that we have another candidate forum coming up for the Senate race. That will be on October 30th. We hope you can join us for that as well. Election Day, of course, coming up. Always encouraged to get out and vote. And a reminder that you can watch this full conversation on the New Center Maine Plus app. We thank you for joining us and for your commitment to being informed before you vote. We hope you have a great night.